English 122, Day 15, Types of Appeals, from Writing Arguments, pages 109 to 123 and 401 to 08. As we learned in our first unit this semester, every logical argument has roughly the same core. This is what's known as an enthymeme, which includes the central claim or thesis and any supporting claims or reasons that the writer uses to support that thesis. For example, here we have the claim and reason pair. Marijuana should remain scheduled as a Class 1 narcotic because otherwise there would be a rise in unwanted pregnancies. This is an enthymeme because it joins our overall proposal claim with a smaller subclaim or reason that is attached to it. The claim and the reason together construct the enthymeme. Then we use the term warrant to refer to the underlying assumption that the enthymeme is based upon, or whatever the audience must first agree with in order for the enthymeme to be logically sound. So in this case, marijuana should remain scheduled as a Class 1 narcotic because otherwise there will be a rise in unwanted pregnancies. The warrant is going to fall somewhere between the claim about marijuana and the reason about unwanted pregnancies. So in this case, we're going to be looking for the audience to agree with something about the relationship between marijuana and unwanted pregnancies, or at least marijuana use and lowered inhibitions. In order to determine if audiences will agree with the warrants that our enthymemes are based upon, writers must be sure to find audience-based reasons that will appeal to the sentiments and values of the audience and that the audience will agree with. Finding audience-based reasons appeals to the audience in three different ways. First of all, it appeals to them logically in terms of the argument's structure, which we refer to as logos. It also appeals to the audience ethically by enhancing the reader's trust in the writer. We refer to this as ethos. Finally, it appeals to the audience pathologically by triggering the reader's sympathies and imagination, which was referred to as pathos. All three types of appeals are connected rhetorically. When trying to understand your audience, make sure that you have asked enough questions about who they are to make sure that you can find appropriate audience-based reasons to support your argument. Ask, first of all, who is your audience? Then ask, how much does your audience know or care about the issue you are dealing with? Secondly, what is your audience's current attitude towards your issue? And then what will be your audience's likely objections to the arguments? Finally, ask what values or beliefs you and your audience do share so that you can find common ground with your readers when you encounter a warrant that they might not agree with initially. All three types of appeals are connected to each other rhetorically. When we think about rhetoric, we always go back to the primary teachings of Aristotle and how he connected the elements of logos, pathos, and ethos to the different elements of the rhetorical situation. First, let's look at logos. Logos relates to the subject or purpose of a text and the logical structure of reasons and evidence in an argument based on warrants that the audience is likely to accept. Pathos, on the other hand, relates to the audience. This is the ability of the writer to connect to the reader's values, triggering positive and negative emotions to make the writing more effective. Finally, ethos refers to the credibility of the writer as established through delivery, tone, word choice, organization, treatment of alternative views, reliability, and trustworthiness. Also, don't forget kairos. This is the ability to come up with an argument that is timely and relates to contextual things that are going on in the world at the time that the text is produced. Consider ways to achieve these types of appeals in your writing. Establish your credibility as a writer through appeals to ethos. You can do this by being knowledgeable about your issue, by being fair in your treatment of alternative views, by building a bridge to the audience, and by grounding the argument in shared values and assumptions to demonstrate your goodwill and enhance your image as trustworthy and respectful. In addition to ethos, you'll want to connect to the audience's values and emotions through appeals to pathos. Pathological appeals are legitimate whenever they intensify and deepen the response to an issue rather than diverting attention away from it. These types of appeals can give access to non-logical, but not necessarily non-rational, ways of knowing information. They can help readers see what is deeply at stake in an issue and what matters to the whole person. These types of arguments are often improved through the use of narratives, which help readers see the reality of a problem and can lend presence to an argument, creating immediacy and emotional impact. Pathological appeals become illegitimate, on the other hand, whenever they confuse an issue rather than clarifying it. In order to achieve appropriate pathos in your writing, be sure to use concrete language to increase the liveliness, interest level, and personality of your prose, and by creating images that trigger positive and/or negative feelings. Try to use as many specific examples and illustrations as possible to provide evidence to support your reasons and to give your argument presence and emotional resonance. Use narratives to tell a story that either leads into your claim or embodies your claim implicitly, as we saw with David Campbell in the Harmon article, and that appeals to readers' feelings and values. And finally, use words, metaphors, and analogies with connotations that match your aim to guide your readers through your angle of vision. Images can be a very effective tool for making pathological appeals if they are straightforward enough to be clearly understood, if they are timely and relevant, and if they add impact to your argument. But always remember, pathological appeals are only legitimate when they intensify and deepen the response to an issue rather than diverting attention away from it, and they can become illegitimate when they confuse the issue with too much emotion rather than clarifying it. Finally, consider the impact of kairos on your argument. Kairos is an argument's timing, its appropriateness for the occasion at hand, or the ability of a writer to place a piece of writing in the right time of the season. Writers try to sense the opportune time for the argument through psychological attentiveness to situation and meaning. Writers must be attuned to the total context of a situation in order to act in the right way at the right moment. But writers must remember that a rhetorical situation is not fixed, but rather it evolves as events unfold or as audiences experience the psychological ebbs and flows of attention and care to an issue. Remember these types of audience appeals and you will be sure to construct a successful argument.